Okay, guys, we're going to look at number 4 together. Important thing to remember is if I do it, you do it. And so we're going to do all of the math together. Make sure that you have this paper, make sure you have your copy paper, and make sure you have your grid paper and your patty paper. All of it needs to be with you. Okay, let's look at 4 together. A trapezoid was transformed on a coordinate grid using the rule xy to negative x, y. Which of the following describes this transformation? A 90-degree clockwise rotation about the origin. B, a 180-degree clockwise rotation about the origin. C, a reflection across the y-axis. Or D, a reflection across the x-axis. Now, you're probably looking at this going, I don't remember, and that's okay. Because it's not something that you need to have to memorize. It's something that you need to understand. And that way, you can always test it to see which one it is. So, we're going to take our grid paper and we're going to draw ourselves a little coordinate plane. And I'm not going to use a lot of space on this because I want to make it small and very easy for me to navigate through. Okay? And so I'm going to put my point right here. I'm going to make sure that my x and my y are not the same. That's very important because you'll get really confused if it's the same. And I'm going to put A right there. Okay. And so let's figure out what my x and my y are. Remember, I start with the origin and I go across first. Always go across first because that's my x. And I have to go 1 over to get to the A. So my x is 1. And I have to go 1, 2 up to get to the A. And my y is positive 2. Both are positive because right is positive and up is positive. Okay, and so on my handy dandy paper right here, I'm going to test A, okay, with a 90-degree clockwise rotation. And I want it to match what it says right here. So I'm going to write that above it, the x, y to the x, negative x, y. And I want you guys to make sure you do the same thing on your paper. Write that above it so we can test A. And I've already put one of my coordinates for A, which is 1, 2. Okay, so my xy is 1, 2. And now I'm going to do what it tells me to do, and it tells me to rotate it 90 degrees around. Okay, so now I get my handy dandy patty paper and I put it on there. And remember, anytime you're doing any sort of rotation or any kind of reflection or anything, you want to put a little bit of your axis on. So I drew an L right there for my axis, and I need you to do the same. And then I'm going to put my point on my axis. All right? Now, it says clockwise. I know clockwise is to the right. And it's only 90 degrees, which means I'm only going 1 quadrant down. So a rotation is a turn. I'm going to turn it 90 degrees. Okay? Now, if I've done it, you do it. So make sure you're doing that on your paper. Okay? And then I'm going to figure out what my new A is. So I start back at my origin, and I'm going to go across first. And this time I have to go right. 1, 2. And right is positive. Okay? So I'm going to write that down on my paper right there. My x was 2. Now let's see what my y is. Okay, I'm right here. Oops, not on the camera. Right there. And my y, I'm right here, 1, 2. And I have to go down 1. Well, if I go down 1, my y is negative. And that's a negative 1. Correct? You with me so far, doing what I'm doing? Okay, so 2, negative 1. All right, let's see if that matches this. All right, so let me draw that out right here. Of course, my x, my y is the same. Now, I'm going to start with my x, which is 1. Do I see my x over here? Well, I see the negative 1, which is the opposite. So I'd carry that over there to right here. So I'm going to do the same thing. See how I drew my line to help me remember? I'm going to draw my line. I'm going to draw my line from my x over here. to remind me that I need to put my x over here. But I'm going to remind myself also that it becomes the opposite number. So it's not going to be positive x. It's going to be negative x. Okay? Now I'm going to look at my y. My y is 2. I'm going to see, do I see it over here? And yes, I do. Did it change? No, it's still the same 2. But look, my y was right here. And now I'm putting it right here. Just carry it over here. So do the same thing right there and put my y right there. Now I have y negative x. Well, does that match what I want up here? Negative x, y. No, not at all. So I know that A is not correct. So now it's time to test B. 180-degree clockwise rotation about the origin. All right, so B, I set it up again, and I already know my first coordinates were 1, 2 to 2, negative 1. So I'm just going to repeat that. 1, 2 to 2, negative 1. Okay? And then I'm going to take my paper and put it back on the original. And we already put the original down. 1, 2. Oh, I messed up. Okay, so I did what you might have done. Maybe you didn't do it and you stopped yourself and you said, no, that's not right, because I actually did the whole thing with the 2, negative 1. So that was wrong. Let's erase that, okay? Because my coordinate is 1, 2, but my new coordinate is not going to be 2, negative 1 like it was for a 90-degree rotation, because this is a 180-degree rotation. So oopsie daisy. Hopefully you stopped yourself from making the same mistake I made. And if not, we all make mistakes. Now you know. All right, so now I'm going to bring, again, it's a rotation clockwise. And so we're going to the right, but this time we're going to go 180 degrees. So when I turn it over here, that's 90 degrees. And then to go 180, I have to go one more time, and that's 180 degrees. So now let's see what my new coordinate is. Starting at the original. Now this time I go left. And how many did I go over? Because my point's right here. So how many do I go over to get to it? I only went over 1. So that's negative 1. Then I went down 1, 2. So my coordinates are negative 1, negative 2. Down is negative. All right, negative 1, negative 2. Let's write that down. Negative 1, negative 2. All right, so now I got to see if that matches this up here. So let's put our x, y down again. And then let's see our comparison. So the 1, did we get over there to the negative 1? Yep. So that's the x is in the same place, but it's become opposite. So the x is in the same place, but it's become opposite, so negative x. Hopefully you guys are able to beat me on this, and you were able to put that negative x before me. Always try to beat me. Always try to see if you're right. All right, and then the y is 2, and I put it in the same place, but suddenly it's become negative. So negative y. Now, does that match? Well, this says negative x positive y. This says negative x negative y. So B is not correct. It is not a 180-degree clockwise rotation. All right, so now we're down to C, where we're checking the reflection across the y-axis. Okay, so I'm going to test C. I'm going to put that on my paper. And I know my first coordinate is the same, 1, 2, right? But this time it's reflection to get to my second coordinate. Okay, and a reflection, if you'll remember, is a flip. Fun, huh? So much fun. All right, so we're going to go back to our original right here. And then this time I'm going to flip it, but I can't remember. Did it say across the x or across the y? It says across the y. Okay, so it's a good idea to kind of highlight or draw out the axis you're flipping out over so you'll remember. Because remember, this is the x-axis and this is the y-axis. So I'm going to draw my y-axis a little bit deeper so I'll remember I'm flipping across the y-axis, okay? And then I'm gonna flip it over this way because this is over the y-axis. So right here, I flip it. I make sure that my origin stays the same and it comes right here. So let's see what my new coordinate is. I go back to my origin, which is down here in the middle, and then I gotta go across first, always across first. So I went left, 1. Well, that's -1. And then I go up, 1, 2. Well, that's +2. So -1, +2. All right, let's write that down on our papers. -1, +2. -1, +2. And then let's do our comparisons. This is x, y, and we're going over here. Let's compare the 1. Is it over here? Yeah, it is. The x is in the same place, but it becomes the negative. Hopefully you beat me on that. So -x. The y, oh, look right there. It is in the same place and it doesn't change. So -x, -y. Is that what it's asking us? It is -x, y. And so it looks like we have figured out our answer by going through and testing all of these, right? Now, if you were to test this across the x-axis, guess what you would get? Go ahead and guess before I show you. Pause the video and guess. All right. So here's what you would get if you tested across the x-axis. Your x and your y would stay the same, of course. And then when you tested it, because it's across the x-axis, your x doesn't change, but your y becomes opposite. Did you get that? I hope you did. Good times.